Today's weigh-in is brought to you by our stable of sponsors.
To the inside from Riverton, and then we've got Bonnie Lass looking to run on, but on the bubbles by 3 lengths from the stablemate. I wish I wouldn't tries hard, and then Bonnie Lass on the bubbles. Have a look at him go. Have a look at a horse that really wants it, and he's a great winner. On the bubbles wins. I wish I wouldn't second.
Now I see the building sky high. More life, more trouble. Other man can't try. Step in the same circles which you once got.
Hello and a very warm welcome to Weigh-In. Wonderful shots coming in from our Puni celebrating Group 1 victory in the Courtesy Ford Manawatu Sires Produce Stakes. A very warm welcome to you too, Michael. And I thought the Group 1 maybe was obvious for punters with On the Bubbles getting up to win, but the undercard had a lot of depth as well there on Saturday.
It sure did, Em. Good morning to you. Happy Easter to everybody watching on a Monday morning. We're on this morning because Hong Kong is on tonight in our usual slot. Great racing there. Raises some questions about who's going to be our 2-year-old of the year. We'll discuss that shortly. One of the great bargain stories of all time, with Joy Alone winning the Manawatu Classic. And away from that, off the track, some huge news in racing. NZTR, your organisation, basically saying enough's enough. We need to make change. We need to do some things with the money we're coming in. We need to make progress. And we've got an interview with Cameron George coming up later, an exclusive interview where he talks about what that actually means for the people watching this show. Yeah,
exciting times, isn't it? Let's get into our race reviews though as we kick things off with the Group 1 Courtesy Ford Manawatu Sires Produce.
Corner, and Lady Morale starting to pick up ground. He travels beautifully on the bubbles, comes wide as they swing. He has a length and a half in front from I Wish I Win, and then Magneto, Soldier Boy closer to the inside from Riverton, and then we've got Bonnie Lass looking to run on, but on the bubbles by 3 lengths from the stablemate. I Wish I Win tries hard, and then Bonnie Lass on the bubbles. Have a look at him go. Have a look at a horse that really wants it, and he's a great winner. On the bubbles wins. I Wish I Win is second. Third has been Bonnie Lass, and then Fonzarette behind them when they've hit it.
Jamie, congratulations on a wonderful win by On the Bubbles. You must be thrilled.
Yeah, he's just continued to step up to the mark all season, and we had a little bit of trouble with him in the spring, but he's turned into a complete racehorse since he's been gelded and held his form very well. He loves to do his job, so very proud of him.
And you actually managed to Quinella the race. You obviously have a bit of an opinion of I Wish I Win because you paid up the late fee for this horse. What's expected with him going forward? Yeah,
so I Wish I Win's a very promising horse, untapped, probably just a little bit inexperienced against On the Bubbles there today. Probably if the track was better, it might have been a little bit of a different story. But both horses will have a break now and be set for the 2,000 guineas.
I wasn't actually standing too far away from you when you're watching the race. You're quite a hard man to read during a race. What were your confidence levels like during it?
I thought Jonathan rode him very well, forward and positive, and he looked to be travelling comfortably from the 700. So when he put a bit of a space in them, it looked like the stablemate was the only one that was going to give him any trouble. So it's good to see the 2-year-olds firing up. We hadn't had the best of days up until now, but I'm glad that we could turn that around.
Awesome result to see On the Bubbles getting up to that victory, and I just love him as a horse. He's a racehorse, isn't he? He loves winning. He goes on any track. He seems so adaptable in the run, and just a special shout out to Jonathan Parkes as well, because he's just enjoyed such a great season, and he's showing what value he is across the whole country at Ellerslie on Karaka Million Night, Group 1 success now with On the Bubbles, and they seem to have formed a great relationship.
And an Auckland Cup and a Wellington Giddies. He's won just under 1.8 million in stakes from 39 wins after a slow start to the season. So I think it's good for him to prove that on the biggest stage, Auckland Cup, being away from the CD where you expect him to be powerful, he can ride with the absolute big boys and big girls. So he's had a fantastic season. On the Bubbles has had a magical season, obviously. If it wasn't for Sword of State, he would be that far ahead of our 2-year-olds. It wouldn't be funny. Here's Parkes, he obviously pushing the button early, and again this horse overcoming a wide draw as he had to in the Karaka.
What's your opinion if Sword of State had been in this race with the off-track conditions? I feel that On the Bubbles would have beaten him. Still excelled himself.
I think so. He seemed to plough through the wet. It didn't seem to bother him. Admittedly, this isn't a strong Group 1 because Sort of State's not there, and the same, like a Sort of State, the Sistema Stakes 3 weeks ago, he beats On the Bubbles and Bonnie Lass runs third, so the form line's very similar.
Stack up, yeah.
The question will be, this horse has had a Karaka Million, which is listed but is basically a Group 1, Group 2 type race. That's where it probably stands. And now he's won a Group 1. So he's won 2 comparable races. Sort of State has also won a Group 1 and a Group 2 in the Waikato Slipper. So they're probably even. Their body of work is probably even. So as a voter, and it's really funny, you tend to vote on these things in the middle of winter, Emily, as you would know. It's just listed in front of you, and all it really comes down to is wins. That's all that really is listed on the piece of paper when you vote. And then what isn't listed is the head-to-head. But the head-to-head obviously is going to draw people towards Sort of State. He's had 2 starts against On the Bubbles and beaten them in both. Now maybe that should matter, maybe it shouldn't, maybe you can only judge them on their body of work, but their body of work's probably similar. So I'm going to vote for Sort of State for 2-year-old of the year, only because if they do have similar work, or if even the other horses a couple of percentage points above him, Sort of State's beaten them both times I've met. And I think both times Sort of State was favoured by the draw and the way the race was run and lots of that stuff, but that doesn't matter. You can't judge on that because you can't judge on what might have happened. You can only judge on what did. Just on Sort of State, of course, he was going to go to Sydney for the English Sires. There's heavy rain forecast Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So he won't be going. So he heads to the paddock, as does On the Bubbles, as does I Wish I Win.
Yep.
All of them go to the paddock. And I thought the really big mover of the entire late summer, autumn was Bonnie Lass.
Oh, she's been great, hasn't
Great
she?
story.
Yeah,
2 Group 1 placings, which
Yeah.
it would be incredibly rare for a filly at this level, particularly an unheard of filly by Super Easy. So she's been a really big winner in this space as well. So what about you? If you're going to vote for 2-year-old of the year, do you have an opinion yet?
I don't. It's a really tricky one for me. I'd really have to sit down and have a good think about it. I guess, yeah, I don't know. I tend to base my voting on the level of races, so Group 1s, Group 2s, which would, I guess, push me towards Sort of State because he does have the, you know, On the Bubbles has the listed win, where Sort of State has the Group 2 and the
Here's a question for
Group
you.
1.
One's a colt, one's a gelding, so it's basically a meaningless victory to On the Bubbles heading forward. His
Didn't look very meaningless to his connections. They were enjoying
I don't mean
it.
to his connections. They would absolutely love to win, and I'm sure NZTR would love to have them at the Horse of the Year dinner too, because that'd be a lot of fun. But does that factor in for you at all? Because it's worth a little bit more to Sort of State.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. You can't look at it like that. It's got to be of your own personal opinion, hasn't it? That's why you're voting. It can't swing whether it's a colt or a gelding.
No, it won't. I think most people watching this show probably think Sort of State's better, and maybe he is. But it's really weird when you vote for these things in both codes. It's just black and white on paper when they send it to you. So, yeah,
One to ponder during the coming
I'm
months.
going to probably vote Sort of State, but I've actually voted in awards before, then crossed them out and voted for a different horse the next morning. Whenever I do my voting, I always wait till the next morning to send it because often you change your mind.
Yeah, you do. Take nothing away from On the Bubbles, though. A wonderful victory and just a fantastic season for him, showing how versatile and adaptable he is. Let's move you along to our next review, which is the Gold Cup from Awapuni, and successful here was Bowdoin.
And around them is Mohaka. Predefer now gets clear air as they go for home. And here we've got Skyfighter, Cernate, Predefer, Mohaka, Bowdoin out wide is starting to put in. Call Sign Mav is coming after these as well. As we've got out wide, Bowdoin hitting the front. And Bowdoin shoots away by a couple of lengths from Predefer. Skyfighter, Call Sign Mav late, but too good. Bowdoin back in business and brilliant in the finish. Predefer, Call Sign Mav, and then Skyfighter fourth. Mohaka behind them when they...
Well, Bowdoin is just so in love with the Awapuni track. That's an 8th victory at a 10th start at Awapuni, and he showed his class and prowess again as he cruised down the outside to a very effortless victory. We've seen performances like this from Bowdoin before, and it was good to see him back winning again. He really made the other horses look pretty second-rate as he powered away up the straight.
He smashed them, and it had a sort of almost a Group 1 consolation race feel to it. Of course, Call Sign Callsign Mavs won a Group 1 this season, but Pre-Defer's been thereabouts, so's Bowdoin. They've been sort of thirds and fourths and Zabels and those types of races. So you take those winning horses away, and a horse like him is just going to be too good for the run-of-the-mill horses. He's up to a rating 104. I spoke to Graham Rogerson, which is really interesting about where he's going. I thought he might go to the Hawke's Bay Cup, and he said that the bottom line is Joan Egan, the owner, makes the decision. So he said she's great to train for, she loves the horses, she'll make the decision based on what's right for the horse. But he did say we might get a Canterbury to Riverton next start for the Canterbury Gold Cup. It's a weight for age race, and Roger was suggesting that could be where Bowdoin goes. You would think he would love Riverton, big, long striding horse. Another horse we're going to see shortly may head to the same race. So I think the CJC could be in for a couple of really good horses. He's up rating 104 now, got 2 points for that win on Saturday. And they could have a couple of really high-powered North Island horses coming down for that carnival. So that's on the 24th, which is the same day as the Easter out of Ellerslie.
Yeah, Pre-Defer in second, and of course in that third spot was Callsign Mav, making up plenty of ground late. Let's get you along to the 3-year-olds. The Manawa 2 Classic, a thrilling finish here in this one.
Starting to go forward now to Meg, and Tony B's got to come from last, but only 8 off them before the home corner at the 550 metres. And he's a doozy. Just in front, Dacian Sweet Junior, the outside, Sea-Jets wider. Click YOLO right on the inside of these. Following it through is Milford Sound, Joy Alone wider. They get up down to the 400 metres here in the Higgins Concrete Manawa 2 Classic. And we've got YOLO getting to the lead, Dacian Sweet Junior, Sea-Jets, Joy Alone starting to charge right down the outside, and Milford Sound getting through on the inside. YOLO is the leader on the inside. Milford Sound, Dacian Sweet Junior and Joy Alone on the outside. What a thrilling finish. Who's going to get it? Or maybe Joy Alone. Maybe Joy Alone, Milford Sound, Dacian Sweet Junior, YOLO and Tony Lee.
Tony Lee summed it up perfectly, didn't he? Another thrilling finish there in the Manawa 2 Classic, and I just love the profile of Joy Alone. For me, she is just a classic Baker Forsman staying type. She's got grit, she's got determination, and you can see the further that she went, the better she got. And on the line, she was great, and I can see her getting over further in the future. And I know the team have used this race to leapfrog themselves into some better races. So it'd be interesting to see what they're going to do with her.
It'd be tempting to take her to the Queensland Oaks or a race like that, because clearly she can handle the wet track. Fascinating story. Purchased, I don't mean to laugh, purchased off Gavel House for $300. I mean, if you were bidding on Gavel House for $300, like, you know, what's an extra 10%? It's $30 more. If you could syndicate a horse off Gavel House for $300, it's $30 for 10 people. It's just amazing. I've never heard of a horse being purchased for that little unless they were going to be a retirement horse. By Rockta Combs, and she's, this mare, it's an old Japanese mare called Optimum Note. She's been to Rockta Combs 5 times, and probably not a stallion who a lot of people would think is a horse you would go to 5 times. Andrew Forsman, who co-trains the horse, said that the owner wanted to buy a stayer, saw her on Gavel House, and clearly saw something that none of us saw, because he fell totally in love with the horse and had to have it, which isn't bad.
Well, for $300, that's okay. If it was $300,000, it's a bit different.
It's a great story. So there's lots of bargains on Gavel House, but not many horses are ever purchased for lower than $300. Goes on and wins that race like an Oaks horse, like a horse who might turn up in a good cup next year.
Yeah.
A Counties Cup type race. Well done to Wiremu Pin, because he was neutral early and then just kept on going. He just kept going wider and wider. The second horse was really good, Milford Sand, for Andrew Carson, so really happy with this run. And the third horse was also good as a progressive type, but
Have they made a decision what they're going to do with Joy Alone?
I only spoke to Andrew on race day, so they hadn't yet. But it'd be incredibly tempting to keep pressing forward knowing she is this progressive. But it's one of the great feel-good stories of the entire season. It's remarkable. So, by the way, Gavel House have an auction live at the moment. This is Monday. If you're watching this on Monday, they've got about 70 lots up for play at the moment.
You often see those horses, don't you? The great stories coming through of people purchasing on Gavel House and then going on to do great things. Surprise Baby, of course, who contested the Melbourne Cup. Let's get you along to the Flying Stakes at our Pooney. That was race number 8. Shadows Cast, the winner of this one.
Deerfield right on the inside. Vicar winner with those. Shadows Cast starting to work his way into the clear as well. well. Streak of Power over on the inside. Deerfield starting to finish hard after it. Colorado Stars trying to come with it. And Shadows Cast starting to put in some pretty big bounds right down the outside of the course here. It is still Streak of Power. Deerfield over on the inside. Shadows Cast Motivation all out wider, getting towards the line. He's back! Shadows Cast! Shadows Cast under the big weight has got there from...
He's back all right, and he used that fourth in a Group 1 behind Avantage to bounce into the Flying Stakes and get a victory. He's a lovely horse, isn't he? And he just never fails to let you down. He always seems to run a good, honest race.
You know, he's won over 600,000 now, Emily. It's a lot of money for a domestic horse. So he's won 12 races. That was his 12th, obviously. Hadn't won a race for 17 months.
Goodness, yeah.
And the last time he won a race was the 1400 metres at Awapuni. So exactly the same race as he was winning on Saturday. Mark Olligan, his trainer, thought the wet track might play against him, and therefore he thought, well, where are we going to go? Because obviously all the tracks are going to get wet soon. He doesn't want to go to Hawke's Bay in 2 weeks because the horse doesn't like Hawke's Bay. That's what Mark said. So they're also considering heading to the Canterbury Gold Cup. So you've got Bowdoin, who won over 2,000 metres, and Shadows Cast, who won over 1,400 metres, both potentially heading to the same race. So that gives that some real oomph from a North Island point of view potentially there. Thought the second horse was really good. Deerfield after missing the kick. He's been one of the real warriors of
He's the same, isn't he? Just
summer
always there.
into winter, wet track, dry track. I think he'll be able to press on because he's such a good wet track horse. I thought both those very good, but those Shadows Cast horses are the ones you dream of, you know. And he's sort of the horse who half launched Pura Encanto in this country, which seems a long time ago now because he's now the leading sire in Hong Kong. But he's been a fantastic horse for them. Mark, by the way, from the jumping point of view, said I've got 4 or 5 jumpers. So that's just around the corner. He said I've got 4 or 5, including a couple I quite like. So maybe worth following him once the sticks go up on track. Just before we get to the next race, Emily, I want to say thank you to, over the last couple of weeks, Love Racing have let us use their cameras and have gone out to places and done a lot of work for us. Liz Whelan, you saw, was back on television there, who obviously was part of the trackside team for a long time. They've been really helpful to us, and they help us bring people the stories on this show. So to everybody at Love Racing, we appreciate all your help.
We're going to take you up north now. Ellerslie also had a meeting on Saturday, and we take in Beauty Star in race number 3.
Beauty Star cruised up in the centre. On the outside, the buzz is in for the fight. Iskander's battling away. 2 lengths away, Daytona Red. Then Roger That. Further back is Ever So Clever. Down to the 200, the buzz made the lead. Beauty Star, don't write it off, still there on the inside. 2 lengths away, Daytona Red. The buzz running on empty. Beauty Star's coming again on the inside for Innes. And now Daytona Red out of the ground as they go to the post. And whoa, gee, that's close. That is very close, right on the line here between either Daytona Red or Beauty Star. Right with them also as they went across was the buzz, then Roger That.
Gosh, it was close, wasn't it? Right on the line. It could have gone either way. Daytona Red, you can see Justin behind there, took a little bit longer to rally, but Beauty Star was too strong down on the rail there for Leith Innes, Michael.
I thought the outside horse had got up, actually. So Leith's very strong in these finishes. Spoke to Tony Pike about where this horse heads next. He's going to nominate for both, gee, that's close, both Te Rapa, that Saturday week, and Hawke's Bay for the Cup, thinking that he may get too much weight at Te Rapa and therefore he would head to Hawke's Bay. Pikey scratched Sherwood Forest, last season's Derby winner, out of the race at Awapuni because of the wet track, and was happy to do so. He said he'll go to the Hawke's Bay Cup. So he'll be his Hawke's Bay Cup horse. Ran on really well in his last start. So he may be the early tip for the Hawke's Bay Cup. And he could have 2 in that race. So 2 potentially for Tony for Hawke's Bay Saturday week. Yeah,
race number 4 at Ellerslie was Manrico, who made it 2 wins in his past 3 outings.
Back at the tail of the field here now was It's Destiny's Child. Down to the 250 they come. Babylon Berlin. She's trying to run them into the deck. Leads by 2.5. Manrico looks to come out after it. Further back, New York Jazz, Madam Hass, and then came time to celebrate. Babylon Berlin. Gee, Manrico's getting close on the outside. She's all out, Babylon Berlin, and Manrico got her. Manrico will beat Babylon Berlin. 3rd, New York Jazz. 4th.
just kept giving and giving right the way to the line under Eilish McCall. He gave Tegan Newman a pretty big day on Auckland Cup Day, and he's given Eilish McCall a nice win here today. And a lovely record, this horse, who obviously won on a Premier day and had a run for 6th, I think, since then, and then backed it up with a victory there at Ellerslie on Saturday.
Yeah, Stephen Rolfe's really good at supporting apprentices. We had an article on Tegan a couple of weeks ago, and Eilish won 2 races on Saturday, so she's having by far her best season. She's had 12 wins this season, won the last with Project. It's great. I like these trainers who are willing to give apprentices a go, and obviously you get the weight allowance quite often for them. Not a bad performance. I think a lot of Stephen's horses tend to be underrated because Babylon Berlin's pretty highly rated, and he beat him fair and square. I thought she was a little bit of a false favourite to be as short as she was, because she was a 3-year-old filly taking on the older horses, which we don't often see happen successfully. I know exactly what Ben was thinking. Ben Foote was thinking we want to get to the Breeders' Stakes, the Cambridge Breeders' Stakes, and therefore we want to keep her fit. But yeah, I thought getting into such short prices was a little bit tight for her. So, but well done to Eilish. 2 wins at Ellerslie. Any day of the year is not an easy thing to do, and her career is progressing really nicely. She's almost up to double her previous personal best season here.
Yeah, we had 3 meetings on Saturday. Riverton was the other meeting, so we take you all the way down south for their feature, which was the Riverton Cup.
Golden Guru homeward bound. It is Dr. Velocious joined by our boy Richie. Rain Man is chiming in. Down to the inside, Odysseus is still there. Then Golden Guru. They're across the track with 150 metres to go. Our boy Richie, Rain Man, Dr. Velocious, Golden Guru, and a slogging go. Our boy Richie, Rain Man lifting. Our boy Richie won the cup. Our boy Richie and Savish Katu from Rain Man and Golden Guru.
Big well done to Savish Katu for that victory, and he really urged his horse home, and our boy Richie was able to get the win in a really exciting finish there. Brought winning form to the race, Michael, but stepping up to the listed company, certainly impressed.
And 3 for the day for the Tylers. So Michael and Matthew Pittman have got quite a fair way ahead on the premiership in the South Island, but they've got 3 back, and obviously racing at Riverton again today on the Monday, so they might have a chance of making a fight of it. They have a lot of horses. They do an awful lot for racing in the deep south, the Tylers. When you go through there for a normal sort of Thursday or Friday meeting, there's so many horses in there, and once again you see these horses that come down from the North Island and are able to do the job. But I just get the feeling the Pittmans might have too much firepower north of Timaru for that South Island-based premiership. Yeah.
Let's have a little look at that trainers' premiership that we were just talking about. Updates, obviously, after the weekend. Jamie Richards on 138 wins. He obviously adds a Group 1 victory to that, to his stakes, group and listed races as well. Stephen Marsh there in second on 61. And then we were mentioning the Pittmans. They sit on third at 42 with plenty of firepower on the South Island. The Baker Forsman team, they added a couple of to theirs as well, with Joy Alone successful in that Manawa 2 Classic. Let's have a look at the Jockeys Premiership. Danielle Johnson, a clear leader on 136. We've got Sam Collett, Lisa Allpress. Not much change from last week, with the girls dominating the Jockeys Premiership, and Craig Grill sitting on that 4th spot after his New Zealand Derby victory.
Just looking at the top of the Jockeys Premiership, also sort of triggers me to talk about the Tiara Breeders, which is this week, because there's been a lot of jockey bouncing around with that. So Sam Collett has, as everybody probably expected, chosen to ride Levante, who trialled last week against Entrevere and Avantage. So Sam being on Levante means the rides on Coventina Bay and Travelling Light come up for grabs. Travelling Light will be Jonathan Riddell.
Okay.
And Coventina Bay will be Craig Grills. Now, there was a chance that Danielle was going to ride Avantage in the Breeders' Stakes because, as you know better than anybody, Opie was going to be going to Sydney to ride Sword of State. Sword of State's not going, therefore your hubby can stay home for the weekend and he'll be riding Avantage. So Avantage Opie, Levante Sam, Coventina Bay Grillsy, and Bonham's not starting. Confirmed yesterday with John O'Bena. Bonham is heading to the Easter. Here's where things get tricky. Spoke to Ken Kelso about Levante, and he said, we're going to start on a slow track. I said, just in case, Ken, for the weigh-in viewers, what happens if it's heavy? He said, I don't know. I said, would you go to the Easter? He said, hadn't thought about it. So the Easter's an option if it gets too heavy for some of those horses. 2 weeks later at Ellerslie as
You
a
just
handicap.
risk that'll be heavy too, though, don't you? I suppose you're getting into that dangerous territory, aren't you, where everywhere could be heavy very shortly.
Well, I was really surprised what Ken said. Levante win, lose or draw if she goes there, if she starts end of season. So there's absolutely no Australia for her. She's finished for the season.
And she'll be better next year for sure.
I would have thought
she's
so.
becoming the finished product, isn't she? Yeah.
Well, but more importantly, it means don't be backing her anything in Australia. So that's the key indicator out of that. We're not sure what the weather is going to be, but yeah, a bit of jockey saddle changing there. But Opie on Avantage, she'll start favourite. As you saw there, she's already the favourite, but she might even get into the red because she'll handle the wet track, whereas we're not sure Coventina Bay and Levante will. I spoke to Ken about that. He said not quite as comfortable on a wet track, so that'll be interesting to see how that pans out over the course of the week with the weather.
Yeah, it's going to be a great race, isn't it? The Group 1 Te Aroha Breeders' Stakes. We're going to get you off to a break here on Weigh In, and on the back of that, we'll be into our action from across the Tasman.
Today's weigh-in is brought to you by our stable of sponsors.
You're back with us on Weigh In, and we jump the ditch to take in our Australian action. We kick things off with the Tankard Stakes coming in from Rose Hill, which featured our New Zealand queen, Melody Bell.
And further back to the chosen one, Melody Bell's right down the outside, 6 off the lead. So Dragonet takes the front now at the 250 and race 2 lengths clear from Spirit Ridge, Toffee, Tongue Angel of Truth. Melody Bell too far back by the looks of it, but it well clear Sir Dragonet inside the 100 metres. A great backup from the big run last week, and Sir Dragonet wins the Tankard. She's Ideal got up to run second. Miami Bound home into third. In front of Spirit.
A lovely performance by the Cox Plate winner, Sir Dragonet, who cruised home for a nice victory. He'd been, I guess you could say, out of form since that Cox Plate win. And Glenn Boss, isn't he just a sensation in these big races? I thought it was really interesting to hear what he said post-race. You know, he's struggling to get rides and things. But when you think of the big races he's won and the record that he's got, it's hard to believe, actually, I think.
It is hard to believe. It's also hard to believe that Bossy once disappeared to Singapore.
Yeah.
It's hard to believe a guy who's at this standard and has won an Everest since he's come back in so many great races. Not that Singapore's the worst place in the world to go, but it's hardly...
Someone of his calibre,
well, it's hardly where most jockeys want to be when the money's this big in Sydney. This horse has had a remarkable career. Of course, he ran 5th in the Derby behind Anthony Van Dyke, you know, the Epsom Derby nearly 2 years ago. Since he's come to Australia, they've done such a good job with this horse. He won the Cox Plate fresh up. He's then started in a Melbourne Cup, so 2,000 metres or 2,040 to 3-2. He's come back to the All Stakes at 1,400, then raced in the All-Star Mile. So these are like massive
Polar
wattage races.
Yeah.
And then he's raced in the Ranvet, now he's won the Tankard. So he's raced in an amazing array of races in just 6 starts for Kieran Maher. Obviously, he now heads to the Queen Elizabeth against Adib and Very Elegant, so he's going to go up to an even tougher type of race. But he's probably better on a wet track. In saying that, so is Adib and so is Very Elegant. So maybe
It'll be a good clash, yeah.
Well, it adds more depth when you're talking about, you know, one of the best horses in Europe and a horse who was competitive, you know, ran second to Magical last year before coming out here. Mugatu could potentially head there, although he's going to the Doncaster this week. Probably won't turn up on that race, so you can absolutely forget about that. She's heading to the Coolmore Legacy on the same day. Most
importantly for New Zealanders, what did you make of Melody Bell and the Tankard, and also the chosen one, of course?
The chosen one, they rolled the dice. I spoke to Andrew Forsman and said, look, Hugh was given permission or latitude to roll the dice and go forward and try to get handy. Didn't work, got stuck 3 wide, wasn't punished in the straight. He heads to the Sydney Cup next up. So
which will suit him down to the ground.
Exactly, they weren't too worried about that. With Melody Bell, they were very conservative early because of the wide draw, just got too far back. I think she draws 3 to 6. She runs top 3 for sure. She just didn't get into the race, and I thought she was really good. So she won't race in Sydney again, ever. She heads to the Hollandale Cup on the Gold Coast, and then the last start of her career, the Doomben Cup, before she gets sold. So she's got 2 races there. The chosen one straight into the Sydney Cup. Now, an interesting update here. A horse I sort of lost track of was Concert Hall, Emily. And I thought after she had that incident at New Plymouth and a few things didn't go right for her, she might not go to Sydney. She's going to Sydney. She's on a plane today, Monday. And she's racing at the Chairman's this week. Now, even if it does rain and that doesn't suit her, they're going to start her in the Chairman's because she's heading for the Sydney Cup, where she's got 53 kilos. Glenn Boss is confirmed to ride her in both, just mentioning Glenn. All of a sudden, you've got a horse who the markets have framed her in Australia not being there. She's at 50 to 1 with some bookmakers in Australia. 50 to 1 for a Group 1 Zabeel Classic winner. With Glenn Boss on, carrying 53 in the Sydney Cup. Now, in New Zealand, she's just on the second page of this, she's at 20 to 1. $51 in Australia. Once she lands, that price shortens. Once people find out Glenn Boss is riding, confirmed at 53, it shortens again.
There's a few questions about her. Do we know she'll stay a Sydney Cup distance?
Her mother won a hurdle race over 2 miles. So she's bred to get a Classic Legacy did. I'm not saying she will or she won't, but what I'm saying to punters watching this is if you have an Australian account, $51, because we know you shouldn't bet in Australia, but if you win, it's good because you take the money off them. She's around $14 a play. So I just think she's enormous overs because she's off people's radar. But spoke to Roger James last night. He said, worked really well Saturday. We're thrilled. Vinny rode the horse, absolutely thrilled with how she worked, and is going, and they have Bossy, and they've got 53 kilos. So there's a lot of moving parts to that add up to a good bet. Whether she runs top 3 or not, I suppose, may depend on track conditions.
Also, I imagine on that plane will be Rocket Spade as well. He had a hit out on Sunday morning at Mutta Mutta and was flying out today as well. So best of luck to all the connections.
Yep, he's on that plane, same plane as well. And we'll look at the Vinery Stakes coming up very shortly. I think they might need to change a plan with their other horses over there, Force of Will. But Rocket Spade spoke to Lance last night, said we couldn't be happier. Kieran McAvoy not only rides him, of course, but will ride Aegon in the Doncaster. So Kieran McAvoy has 2 of the best 3-year-olds in New Zealand underneath him coming up this Saturday.
Let's have a look at the Vinery Stud Stakes, the other Group 1 on the card from Rose Hill. The Kiwi here was Force of Will.
350 opens up 3 lengths on Elizabeth. Hungry Heart's coming out of the pack. The only one coming out of the pack. Harmony Rose 2 lengths clear. Hungry Heart goes to second. Trying to get on terms with Harmony Rose, who's a length and a half to Hungry Heart. They're well clear from the rest. Hungry's coming. Harmony Rose and Hungry Heart. Hungry Heart goes to Harmony Rose and Hungry Heart. Big win. Hungry Heart's come from well back to beat the favourite Harmony Rose. Impecunious third.
So Force of Will was the Kiwi in the Vinery Stud Stakes. The victory went to Hungry Heart. Kieran McAvoy did the riding and got home nicely to beat the leader, did the number 3 Hungry Heart. What did you make of Force of Will from a moving forward perspective? I didn't think she was disgraced. I thought she held her own after getting a little bit bumped around at the top of the straight.
Hard to see on that she runs 2,400 at Randwick. That was 2,000 at Rose Hill, and there's a lot more depth to come into the Oaks. Spoke to Lance last night. He said, we're keen to back off a little bit. Excuse me, have to talk to the owners, but we're keen to go to the Gold Coast in Queensland and pull back in distance.
Yeah.
So I don't think she'll go there. The winner, Hungry Heart, by Frankel, also won the Far Lap, so she's obviously a pretty good horse. Here's the market for the Oaks. Now, it's all based around Amaralina. She turns up there, she starts favourite. She'll trial at Ellerslie on Tuesday, so tomorrow she'll trial, and she's going to get on the plane unless the rain has been torrential. So they're going. She's heading there with Entrevia next Monday, but if it gets heavy, she won't start. So Jamie Richards said the weather is everything for us. That's totally matters for her and probably on the Coolmore Legacy. But trials tomorrow, so we'll try and get that footage out for you on social media as quickly as we can. Very happy with how she's bounced out of Trentham. Said no concerns. We're happy with the horse. All that matters to us is the weather. Other thing out of that race, Impecunious, of course, former South Island horse, doing a super job. Purchased after 1 win at Riverton. Now looking a smart buy, has been placed at a couple of times at that high level in Australia. Now a Group 1 place getter.
A key race for the 3-year-olds on the card at Rose Hill was the Tulloch Stakes. This one was won by Yale Town. We had the frontman in the mix here as well.
Runners and doing so now, 3 or 4 off the lead. Yale Town leads at the 300 by a length and a half on Fields of Honour. Young Werther's winding up. The frontman battles on and then came further back to Cherry Tortonia. Still got work to do. Yale Town is a length and a half clear from Young Werther and then Prompt Prodigy. Yale Town in front of Prompt Prodigy. Young Werther and Yale Town will lead all the way. Yale Town won it from Prompt Prodigy and Young Werther. Then Fabro followed by...
Yaletown led from start to finish to get up and win. If you were watching the Punters Lounge live on Saturday morning, it was tipped out by Brad Gray, and he got a pretty nice price around it as well. For Kiwi connections, a number of Kiwi breds in it, and also, of course, a New Zealand Derby place getter in the frontman.
Yeah, and Andrew said, look, we're not too concerned about that. He just got a little bit keen. He wasn't quite sure how to handle himself. They are hoping for rain, which is forecast in Sydney this week, as I said, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, which will help frontman or the frontman, so not too concerned about him from a Derby point of view. Milford is also heading to the Derby, who raced last week in the Rosehill Guineas. Spoke to Stephen Marsh today, definitely going. Damien Oliver will ride him.
Ooh, nice.
And Rocket Spade obviously is going with Kieran McAvoy, as mentioned on the plane today. So very open market, but wouldn't be too put off by the frontman. I think the rain will help. Milford's blowing out to $41. Stephen said we'll be a lot better at Randwick than Rosehill. Just on the winner there, Yaletown by Vancouver. Really interesting, Vancouver, for a horse who's won a Golden Slipper. His 2-year-olds don't seem to run. And yet, remarkably, he's had a staggeringly good 3-year-old season. He's had about 15 individual 3-year-old winners. So not what you expect from a slipper horse, but he's turning into a very good sire of 3-year-old winners.
Yeah, we can also have a little look at the Doncaster market as well, because a couple of key horses in this, Aegon being one of those who you said to be ridden by Karen, which is a key booking. Yeah,
and trialled on Thursday on the ill weather, was really good, so they were happy with Aegon. This market's changed quite a bit because Mugatu, who obviously won the All-Star Mile, wasn't expected to go, is now going. And Aegon's only got 52.5, but Mwanga comes in with even less weight, the Rosehill Guineas winner. So there's a couple of horses now around Aegon or even below Aegon on the weights who you weren't expecting to be there. Rain will help him, but barrier draw may well be crucial in that race because you don't want to be drawing too wide in that field, even though he'll handle the wet track so too will Mugatu after what we saw at the Valley. So it's become maybe a trickier Doncaster than we thought it might be about a month ago, but bottom line is they're very happy with Aegon.
Yeah, mouth-watering stuff there, isn't it? Let's have a quick look at the Horse Ambulance Trust fundraiser. Very quickly through this, it's on Gavel House. Bidding closes this evening. There's 6 dining experiences. There's one with Danielle Johnson and Sam Collett. That's currently sitting at $2,800. There's Tony Lee, Kevin Myers. That's at $2,200. Head to Gavel House for details for that New Zealand Horse Ambulance Trust fundraiser. Wonderful cause and also a wonderful experience possibly to be had, depending who you purchase. There's some great options available online. Quick break, and then on the back of that, we get into an interview with Cameron George. Michael Guerin caught up with him earlier on last week.
Today's weigh-in is brought to you by our stable of sponsors.
Well, Ken, thanks for joining us, mate. Big leadership document coming out from NZTR on Thursday, Cameron. People watching this show will be thinking, well, we've seen plenty of reports before. Cameron, how's this one different?
Well, it's not a report, firstly. For the industry, it's an action plan. It's one that, we did a review on the back end of last year and a few of the changes that were happening, both in the legislation perspective and also just around the structure of the industry. And we believe that we need to get our backyard in order. And there are 7 clear, aspects to our industry that we've identified that need change, and they need progression, they need positive change. And so I see this purely as an action plan, an execution roadmap. And certainly not just another report. It's certainly something that gives us, every person in the organisation and on the board, something to hang our hat on in a timely manner.
Cam, you've set timeframes for each of the 7 parts of the industry you want to action. Is that to increase accountability both inside NZTR and inside the industry?
Yeah, you're right. It is. First, if we look at internally, it's important we act and not just talk. And from my perspective, I'm real big on just keeping it simple, keeping it effective, keeping it efficient, but also executing every time we can. So we've identified the areas of improvement that will create better performance. So it's up to our staff, our management, to go forward and execute those changes. And that's why there's timelines put in place, because I don't want open-ended discussions. I don't want open-ended plans. I want conclusions and I want execution. And each one of these actions that we've identified will get a better performing industry, which then flow on to financial upside to every participant. So it's important internally we had that mindset and we go after it. Externally, obviously, there's going to be decisions that we explore and undertake that aren't going to be the most popular one, but I mean, that's not our job. Our job is to ensure that we have the best performing industry to return the best financial benefits to every participant, whether the jockeys, owners, trainers, or employees in the industry. That's our job. So externally, hopefully there's a big embracement around this, and we all get excited, we all get on the front foot, and we all get behind what we can do to make it better performing. And these are some key areas and some directional changes that can help the industry move forward.
One of the key wordings in the action plan, Cameron, is that you may, basically paraphrasing, you may not like this if you're inside the industry, this factor or that factor because of self-interest, but your team are working for the good of the industry, and that's what needs to be remembered.
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't matter what industry you're in, and when you're sitting in leadership roles like we all do in certain parts of it, every decision ain't popular. But if you go through the action plan, I wouldn't have thought there'd be too many people that wouldn't want to see the outcomes that we desire with this execution, with the executions of every point. So every outcome is positive. Every outcome makes us better performing. Every outcome will potentially give us more money back into the industry. So what we've done is structured it in a way that we get those outcomes in a timely manner, and everybody's accountable with their roles in the industry to get them done. I keep going back, this ain't a report. This is a roadmap to better performance in our industry, which gives us better outcomes financially.
One of the key factors mentioned in the 7 goals was participation and attracting more people from inside New Zealand to work in the industry and make it attractive to them and educate them about careers in thoroughbred racing. What steps can we take toward that?
Like, very good training programs to start with. You look at any high performance sport, they start at a very young age and they educate and train young athletes, young employees in any sport to the best they can. And we as an industry have got a huge gap in relation to other sports. So, if we wanted to see young kids come to the sport, it's got to be professional, it's got to have a pathway, and it's got to have very good training and development programs in place. Bruce Sharrock, who's heavily involved in that part, has a lot of experience in the sporting sector through rugby union and rugby league. So we see it all the time outside of racing. And it's hugely important that we get it right within racing, because we have so many people that love the horse industry. But when you stand there with a 15-year-old, it's not a very clear pathway to the top, whether you want to be a jockey, whether you want to be a trainer, whether you want to be an administrator. We want to provide those opportunities, and we're a long way down the track of creating something special through training programs and partnerships. So that's very exciting for the future of our game, and it's time we start now and not think about it for another 12 months.
There's a section there on venues, Cameron. There'll be people watching weigh in this morning who would think, okay, I want racing in my area, and they will be fearful that with synthetic tracks coming to different parts of the country, their tracks may not be needed. What's NZTR's attitude to tracks in smaller regions and keeping those tracks going, even if they may cost a bit of money?
Yeah, look, that's just a moving part to the industry, like any industry. Look, those venue plans have been in place for a while now. They were consulted with to the industry some time ago, and NZTR, whilst those plans are in place, are very sensible in their thinking that we review it constantly. There could be changes, i.e. look at what's happening in Auckland now. That's getting a lot of momentum, obviously. So therefore, there might be a requirement for other tracks in that region to remain that possibly weren't on the agenda 2 years ago. So everything moves, it can move rapidly, and everything's a byproduct of other decisions made in the industry. So in short, whilst we have a plan for that, everything is constantly reviewed. And if we need to make decisions for the for the region or for what's best for the industry, we'll do so. But sometimes you have to change your plans, and that may mean we keep tracks that weren't necessarily planned to, or alternatively, we may alter that plan and go down a different pathway in a region that it could be different to what was proposed 5 years ago, 2 years ago.
Cameron, I spoke to you and Bernard about the calendar, the racing calendar, and the best way to utilise New Zealand product. What changes would you like to see after consultation to the racing calendar, whether that is the time of the day we start races or the time of the year or season that certain carnivals are held?
Yeah, look, venues aside, the racing calendar is our greatest asset to get uplift financially into our industry. Don't be fooled by that. It is the platform that provides us opportunity to the rest of the world, betting and socially. So it's important we get it right. And there is, again, so many moving parts to that. There's been so many changes to the Australian racing calendar. For me, I want to underpin our calendar with trying to ensure we keep our New Zealand horses in New Zealand racing for longer rather than taking off to Australia and racing in Australia. And that could simply be of two reasons. One is because of the clash of new carnivals or races that have been put on the Australian calendar, or two, prize money, which I'll get back to shortly. So it's important we complement each other, both Australia and New Zealand, and we have a very good working relationship in that, and we continue to build on that. So the changes will always be underpinned for getting more people to the races, keeping New Zealand horses racing in New Zealand longer to benefit our game, which ultimately comes back to better betting, better revenue off the track. So with that in mind, actually it all comes back to better stakes money down the track as well. So there's a flow-on effect here, but what necessarily was right in the calendar and its position and the flow of the calendar over the last decade, 20, 30, 40 years could be vastly different now, because we do have to change in order to complement what else is happening out there in the racing world, not just in New Zealand.
Cam, there's a section there too on wagering to be actioned. I know that you think, the whole NZTR team think, it's time we worked closer with Australian betting operators to push our product there and increase our turnover, whether that's with Tabcorp or whether it's with other bookmakers. Are you guys open to more JVs, not just with the traditional partners?
Yeah, look, we're open to everything. What I don't know is what deals are there. There's a lot of people running around, you should, and so on. That's fantastic that people are so passionate about those outcomes, and I get that. But the reality is I haven't personally seen any deal. So, look, we know and we have an extremely good, strong working relationship with Dean McKenzie and his team above at the board and below in his management. So we'll work alongside of them. But as an industry, we have also got to explore partnerships and so on. So we'll continue to do so, because at the end of the day, everything we can do to generate revenue for our industry goes back to the participants or investment into our game for a greater future. So we've got to get off our backsides. We've got to find different revenue opportunities. And not just live with the traditional sources, whether that's through property assets, whether that's through, other gaming partnerships and so on. We'll continue to explore it. But we've also got to look after our own partner in the New Zealand TAB and make sure we're doing everything we can to ensure that their business continues to grow and be very profitable for our industry. So we're looking forward to those challenges ahead. We're looking forward to a great partnership ahead.
Cameron, I think a lot of people will be enthused by knowing the bosses at NZTR are looking for change and maybe rapid change. But what about stakes? Everybody eventually comes back to stakes and they want to know what the stakes are going to be next season or the season after, and they want 10,000 to become 15,000 for minimums, or maybe even 20. Where does the plan for stakes sit as of now?
Well, it underpins, financial benefits. Like, the reality is, in any business, as you well know, and a lot of people will know in this industry, there's no use having $100,000 races if your track's no good, if the facilities are no good, if our reputation's no good, and it makes no sense. So what this execution plan does is allowed us to build from within our own industry, we all know, well, hopefully we all know, that the TAB are the funding providers that then allow us to spend that money wisely and soundly to increase or to sustain whatever stakes money levels we can in the industry. So once we get that dollar bill from the TAB, we at NZTR will have a very sensible and progressive and aggressive in certain parts funding model to put back into our industry. So basically, when we get $100 from the TAB, it's our role then is to spend it wisely. Whilst we're putting a focus on increasing stakes money, 100%, that's our goal. That's our ambition. That's what we want to do for our industry. And we will look at every way to do that. But at the same time, in my own personal view, we can't let the industry fall down around it, because if we don't have our tracks right, if we don't have our facilities right, if we don't have our industry performing the best it possibly can, so the reputation is without question, our industry will suffer long term. So short-term gains, yes, we're trying to strive to get them with stakes money increases once we understand what the TAB can provide us. And then this plan allows us to build the industry from within. So it's a bit of a balancing act, and one that I think we've got a pretty good handle on. But I can't wait to the day where we can come out and say there's more and more stakes, and that'll be the flow-on effect to a much, much better performing industry, which we're seeking to get through this action plan. And I'm really excited about the next 12 months, because everyone's accountable. There's a plan there. It's simple, it's effective, and the outcomes will make for a better performing industry. So with everyone buying in, it's an exciting time, providing everyone buys in and we get on the board and we have a bit of fun along the way with a great, great industry.
A big thank you to Cameron George for his time. A really in-depth interview there about those changes. And Michael, it seems like a really positive time for the industry.
Apologies for the quality of that, Emily. Obviously, I was away for the weekend, so we didn't have the chance to get shaved up and made up and try and do things properly, but Cam was fantastic. It's a statement of intent from Cameron and his board on the executive there, and Bernard Saundry. They've said, look, we can't just keep waiting and waiting. We've got to make some changes, and we need to make them in a time frame. And the key word here is accountability. Cameron said to people in the industry, we want to make some changes, and you guys come along, and we're going to make them for your benefit. You may not like them, but we're doing it for the good of the industry. But also, he said to Bernard and his team, you're accountable. You're being paid to do this, so you need to drive this and make it happen. So in my time in racing, I haven't seen an administrator come out quite this vehemently and say, enough's enough. Time frames are here. We need these things done. One of the key factors is joint ventures. Mm-hmm. They want to work with overseas bookmakers, along with the TAB, of course, and work together to see the best outcomes for New Zealand racing. What that means for stakes, it can only be good, but Emily, stakes aren't much good unless we have the systems right and things like tracks and horse welfare and all that right. So I'm expecting more information from NZTR in coming weeks around horse welfare, but I think this can only be a positive for the industry.
Well, that's it from us here on Weigh In. It's been a pleasure to have your company as always, and we'll be back same time, well, not same time, we'll be back at 8 p.m. next week.